Hello, dear YouTube viewers. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so let's start our video. I'm in my late 30s, the kind of man who has built a life on routine. My days are steady, wake up early, head to the office, come home in the evening, and spend the night with my wife in our quiet suburban house. We've been married for over a decade, and for most of that time, I thought I knew her as well as I knew myself. Life with her had become familiar, comfortable, almost predictable, and I used to believe that was the very definition of happiness. But over the past several months, I had begun to notice subtle shifts in her behavior, things that seemed small on their own, but together formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. She had started paying extra attention to her appearance in ways she never used to. Even when she was just running errands, she would stand longer in front of the mirror, choosing her clothes with unusual care. Then there were the late-night text messages that made her smile faintly before she locked her phone and set it face down on the nightstand. When I'd ask who she was chatting with, her answers were vague. Just a friend, or work stuff, nothing important. Our conversations had grown thinner, too, where we once shared every detail of our day. She now seemed distracted, lost in thought, as if part of her attention lived somewhere else. That evening began like any other. I was sitting in the living room, scrolling absently through the news on my phone, when she appeared in the doorway. She was dressed in a way that caught me off guard. Stylish, polished, almost like she was preparing for something more significant than a casual outing. She said it lightly, almost carelessly, as though it were the most ordinary announcement in the world. "I'm going out tonight with some friends." For a moment, I couldn't respond. She hardly ever went out at night without me, and when she did, it was usually for something specific like a work dinner or a family gathering. But this was different. There was no real explanation, no names mentioned, no invitation for me to come along. I felt my chest tighten, though I managed to keep my face calm. I forced a smile, nodded, and pretended her words didn't unsettle me, but inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. As she picked up her purse and checked her reflection one last time, I found myself watching her with a strange mix of admiration and unease. She looked beautiful, no doubt about it, but there was something in her demeanor, a quiet nervousness that stirred questions in the back of my mind. I wanted to believe there was nothing to worry about, that this was simply a night out like she said. Yet deep down, suspicion had quietly taken root, whispering possibilities I didn't want to consider. The moment the front door clicked shut behind her, I was left in the silence of our living room, staring at the empty space she had just occupied. On the surface, everything seemed harmless, just a wife going out with friends for the night, but my mind wouldn't let it go. I trusted her. Of course I did. Trust had always been the foundation of our marriage. Yet, something about the way she said it, the tone in her voice, the way her eyes darted away from mine instead of meeting them, stirred an unease in me that I couldn't shake. When she spoke, her words carried a nervous energy, as though she were trying too hard to make them sound casual. "Just some old friends, don't worry," she'd said, brushing off my questions with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I noticed, too, how carefully she had dressed. Heels she rarely wore, a fitted dress she usually reserved for special occasions, a trace of perfume that lingered in the hallway after she walked past. It wasn't that she didn't deserve to look beautiful or go out. It was that the effort felt intentional, different. I had asked her where she was going, pressing just enough to show interest, but not enough to seem controlling. Where exactly? With who? I had said, keeping my tone light. Her reply was quick, maybe too quick. "Just some old friends. Don't worry about it." Then she bent to pick up her purse, her hair falling forward to shield her face, as though that simple movement could hide the tension in her expression. I let the matter drop out loud, but in my head, the words replayed over and over. Old friends? Which ones? I knew most of her close circle, and none of them had mentioned plans. Why so vague? Why not just say the names? I told myself I was overthinking it, but my heart disagreed, beating heavier than usual as I sat back down on the couch. That's when the memories began to surface, moments that had seemed insignificant before, but now felt like puzzle pieces sliding into place. The late-night calls she'd stepped out of the room to take, her voice hushed and low, the way she had started smiling at her phone before quickly locking the screen if I walked in, the sudden interest in her wardrobe after years of being content with simple clothes. At the time, I dismissed it all as harmless changes, phases she was going through, but now it all resurfaced, sharp and accusing. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe she really was meeting friends. Maybe she just wanted a night to herself. After all, I wasn't perfect either. There were times I had come home late from work without explaining everything in detail. But the unease wouldn't let me rest. It gnawed at me, whispering possibilities I didn't want to entertain, but couldn't ignore. I sat there for a long while, tapping my fingers against the armrest, glancing at the clock, imagining where she could be. Was she laughing with someone else? Was there a man waiting for her? The thought made my stomach twist. I hated myself for thinking it, for even doubting her, but it was there all the same. At last, I admitted to myself what I had been circling around since she walked out the door. I couldn't let this go, not tonight. I needed to know where she had gone, who she was with, and why she had been so vague. I needed proof one way or the other, to silence the storm of questions rattling in my head. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, the decision forming with a weight that felt both terrifying and inevitable. I was going to find out the truth. I sat in the living room for what felt like an eternity, the clock ticking louder with each passing second, my thoughts circling in endless loops. A part of me wanted to let it go, to trust her words and respect her privacy. That's what a good husband was supposed to do, wasn't it? Give her space, believe in her, show faith in the vows we had built our life upon. But another part of me, the restless, gnawing part, kept whispering, what if you're wrong? What if she's hiding something from you? The very idea of following her felt wrong, like I was betraying her, before I even knew if she had betrayed me. I imagined how furious she would be if she ever found out. The guilt pressed heavily on my chest, and I tried to push the thought away, telling myself I was just being paranoid. Yet the image of her walking out the door in that elegant dress, the confidence in her stride, and the hint of nerves in her smile all played back in my mind like a film on repeat. She wasn't just going out for a casual drink with friends. She looked too prepared, too polished, as though the night carried more weight than she wanted me to believe. I tried to distract myself by turning on the television, flipping aimlessly through channels, but nothing held my attention. My mind kept drifting back to her, out there somewhere with someone she hadn't named. Every second I sat still felt like a betrayal of my instincts. At last, with a deep breath and a pounding heart, I made the decision. I wasn't going to sit here, wondering. I was going to follow her. I grabbed my car keys, careful not to slam the door as I left, as though even the empty house might judge me for what I was about to do. My car engine roared to life, louder than I expected in the still night air, and for a moment I froze, terrified she might hear it from wherever she had gone. But she was long gone. The street was quiet. I drove slowly at first, trying to calculate which direction she would have taken. Fortunately, I knew her well enough to guess. The main road toward the city was the most likely, and sure enough, after a few turns, I spotted her car up ahead, its taillights glowing faintly in the distance. My pulse quickened. I hung back, careful not to get too close, keeping 2 or 3 cars between us whenever I could. The city streets were alive with traffic, neon lights flickering against the dark sky. I felt like a spy in some cheap thriller, my grip tightening on the steering wheel every time she slowed at a light or made a turn. I was terrified she'd glance in the mirror and spot me. At one intersection, the light changed just as she slipped through, leaving me stuck behind a red. My chest tightened as her car moved further ahead, nearly swallowed by the sea of headlights. I muttered under my breath, drumming my fingers impatiently on the wheel until the light turned green, then pressed harder on the gas, desperate to catch sight of her again. When I finally did, relief washed over me, though it was laced with a deeper dread. I was following my wife through the night, chasing answers I wasn't sure I wanted to find. Every block brought me closer to the truth, but also deeper into the shadows of suspicion I had never imagined we would face. The drive felt endless, though in truth it couldn't have been more than 20 minutes. My eyes stayed locked on the glow of her taillights, my stomach churning with every turn she took. I had no idea where she was going, but when her car finally slowed, pulling into the lot of a high-end restaurant and hotel, my chest tightened like a vice. The building was one of those places we'd only ever visited for anniversaries or special occasions. White stone exterior, valet parking out front, soft golden lights spilling onto the sidewalk. It wasn't the kind of place you went with just some old friends. I pulled over half a block away, killing the engine and lights, my fingers trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. My mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. Was she meeting another man? Someone she had been hiding from me all along? My heart thudded against my ribs, the sound so loud I was sure someone would hear it. I wanted to believe I was wrong, that I was misreading everything. But what reason could she have to come here, dressed the way she was, secretive about her plans? I slipped out of my car, keeping low, the night air cool against my face as I crept closer. From a distance, I spotted her. She had parked near the entrance, stepping out gracefully, adjusting the strap of her purse as if steadying herself. She looked around briefly, almost nervously, before making her way toward the entrance. Then I saw him, or at least I thought I did. A man in a dark suit emerged from the building, tall, polished, the kind of presence that drew attention even in a crowd. He approached her with a firm stride. My chest burned, a cocktail of anger and dread flooding through me. This was it, the moment I had feared. My wife, meeting another man outside a hotel. I clenched my fists, my body itching to move, to storm across the lot and demand answers. The image of confronting them, her startled face, his smug indifference, flashed in my head, filling me with rage. But something held me back, some small, rational voice urging caution. If I burst in now, I might never truly know what was happening. I needed to see, to listen, to gather the truth before I destroyed everything with a single outburst. So I stayed in the shadows, hidden behind a row of parked cars, my eyes fixed on them. My wife and the man exchanged a few words, their posture stiff, formal. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't touching him. Either no friendly hug, no affectionate brush of the hand. In fact, she looked uncomfortable, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, her arms crossed tightly across her chest as though shielding herself. The man, for his part, wasn't leaning in close or behaving like a lover. His gestures were sharp, deliberate, more like a businessman than a suitor. He pulled something from his jacket pocket, a folder perhaps, and handed it to her. She hesitated before taking it, glancing around nervously, then clutching it to her side as if it were something precious or dangerous. My pulse raced as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. This wasn't the flirty rendezvous I had imagined. It looked serious, almost secretive, but not romantic. The way she held herself, tense and defensive, told me she wasn't there by choice, or at least not comfortably. I crouched lower, straining to catch any sound, but the distance and hum of traffic swallowed their voices. My imagination filled the silence, leaping from one possibility to the next. Was she in some kind of trouble? Blackmail? Debt? Was this man threatening her, coercing her into something? Or was it all innocent? A colleague, a distant relative, something she hadn't told me because she didn't want to worry me? The uncertainty gnawed at me worse than anger ever could. Every second felt stretched, my emotions swinging violently from jealousy to fear, from betrayal to confusion. I wanted to run to her, to pull her away, demand the truth right there under the neon glow of the hotel sign. But I stayed rooted to the spot, every instinct screaming for patience. As the minutes dragged on, I realized I was no longer certain of what I wanted to find. The idea of her cheating had seemed clear, brutal, almost straightforward. But this was something murkier, layered with secrets I didn't understand. And that made it all the more terrifying. My wife disappeared into the building with the man, her figure swallowed by the revolving doors. I felt my throat tighten as I leaned forward, my hands trembling against the cold metal of the car beside me. I knew I couldn't stop now. Whatever this was, it was bigger than a simple night out. And if I didn't follow through, I might never know the truth that was hiding just beyond those golden doors. I edged closer to the building, my heart pounding with each step. The hotel's entrance spilled golden light onto the sidewalk, catching in the glass doors as they rotated. I hesitated before slipping inside, my breath tight, palms damp with sweat. The lobby was elegant, marble floors, soft music humming in the background, guests drifting toward the restaurant with murmurs of laughter. I scanned the room, searching for her. There she was. My wife stood near a corner table in the lounge, that same folder still clutched in her hands. The man in the suit sat across from her, his expression serious but not intimate. They weren't leaning toward each other like lovers. Instead, it looked more like a business meeting, though the tension in her posture was undeniable. I found a seat near enough to observe without drawing attention, half hidden behind a large potted plant that shielded me from direct view. My ears strained for any scrap of their conversation. At first, the hum of voices around the room drowned everything out, but then a fragment reached me. He deserves something special after everything he's done for you. The man's voice was low, deliberate. She nodded quickly, flipping open the folder to glance at its contents. I caught the edge of a photograph, then what looked like a page covered in notes. "I just don't want him to suspect anything," she said, her voice tight with nerves. "He's already been asking questions." My chest tightened. She was talking about me. I leaned forward, every nerve in my body alert. "He won't know," the man reassured her. "The reservations are set. The venue is confirmed. The hardest part is keeping it a surprise." My heart skipped a beat. Surprise? As the pieces slid together, I suddenly felt lightheaded. I wasn't watching my wife betray me with another man. I was watching her plan something for me. A celebration. A secret meant not to hurt me, but to bring me joy. The man pulled a few more papers from the folder, caterer options, decorations, guest lists. My wife's face softened as she studied them, her anxiety fading into a small, hopeful smile. "He deserves this," she murmured. "He's been working so hard lately, and I want to remind him how much he means to me." A rush of heat flooded my face, shame burning in my veins. Every suspicion I had entertained, every dark thought about betrayal, collapsed under the weight of her words. She wasn't hiding from me. She was hiding something from me. I leaned back in my seat, my stomach twisting with guilt. How could I have been so blind, so quick to assume the worst of the woman who had stood by me for years? I thought of the late-night texts, the secretive smiles, the sudden attention to her appearance. All of it now made sense. She hadn't been drifting away from me. She had been preparing something she couldn't let me see, pouring her energy into a gift of love. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, but the emotion caught in my throat, tangled with regret. For hours, my mind had painted her as unfaithful, my heart stewing in suspicion, when in truth she had been planning a moment to celebrate us. The man gathered his things and shook her hand, professional and polite, before excusing himself. My wife lingered at the table, scanning the notes one more time before carefully tucking them back into the folder. Her shoulders dropped with relief, as though she'd just carried a weight she could finally set down. I remained hidden, torn between running to her with apologies and staying silent. The truth was clear now. She wasn't cheating, not even close. But the shame of what I had suspected weighed heavily. If I revealed I had followed her, spied on her, doubted her loyalty, I risked turning her sweet gesture into bitterness. I pressed a hand against my chest, steadying my breath. For now, it was enough to know the truth. She loved me more than I had allowed myself to believe. The shadows I had chased all night were nothing but ghosts of my own insecurity. Still, as I watched her gather her purse and walk toward the exit, one thought repeated in my mind, haunting and humbling. I was wrong about everything. I waited until she left the lounge, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor, before I finally pushed myself up from my hiding spot. My legs felt heavy, my body stiff from crouching in the shadows, but the real weight was in my chest. I couldn't just let her walk out without saying something. As much as I wanted to slink away and bury my guilt, the thought of keeping this secret, that I had followed her, doubted her, felt worse. She was halfway across the lobby when I called her name. My voice cracked, louder than I intended. She spun around, eyes widening in shock as she spotted me standing there. The surprise on her face quickly morphed into something sharper, confusion, then anger. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice low but edged with steel. I swallowed hard, my palms clammy. I followed you." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment I thought she might slap me right there in front of everyone. She stepped closer, her jaw tight. "You followed me?" she repeated, each word clipped. "You didn't trust me? After everything, you thought I was, what? Sneaking around behind your back." The sting in her voice cut deeper than any accusation I'd made in my own head. I raised my hands slightly, a feeble attempt to calm her. "I know how it looks, and I'm ashamed, believe me. But when you left tonight, you were so vague, so different. I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. I kept remembering all the little things, the late-night texts, the way you've been distracted lately, how you've been dressing up more. I let it eat at me. I thought the worst." Her expression softened just enough for me to keep talking. My voice cracked as the guilt spilled out. "I love you so much that the idea of losing you, it terrified me. And instead of talking to you, I let suspicion get the better of me. I'm sorry. I should have trusted you." She exhaled sharply, pressing a hand to her forehead. "Do you have any idea what you've ruined tonight?" Her voice trembled, not with guilt, but with hurt. "I wasn't lying to you. I wasn't sneaking off to betray you. I've been planning something for you, a surprise. I wanted it to be perfect. That's why I've been so secretive. I wanted to show you how much I care." Her words hit me like a punch. The folder, the meeting, the nervousness, it all lined up perfectly with what I'd overheard. She had been working so hard to give me something beautiful, and I had turned it into a nightmare in my own mind. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes as I whispered, "I don't deserve that. I don't deserve you." She looked at me for a long, quiet moment, her anger cooling into something sadder, more complicated. "What you don't deserve is to let your fear destroy what we have. If you want to know the truth, you don't have to follow me. You just have to ask." Her words cut deep, but they were true. And in that moment, I realized trust wasn't something you gave once and forgot about. It was something you had to choose, over and over again. We stepped out of the hotel together, the night air cool against the heat of everything that had just passed between us. My wife walked a few paces ahead, her arms folded across her chest, her silence heavier than any words she might have thrown at me. I followed quietly, my heart aching with guilt, the echo of her question still lodged in my mind. "You didn't trust me?" When we reached the parking lot, she stopped abruptly, turning to face me. Her expression was softer than before, though disappointment still lingered in her eyes. "I don't know what hurts more," she said, her voice low, "that you thought I could betray you, or that you didn't come to me first before letting your suspicions run wild." I lowered my head, unable to meet her gaze. "You're right," I admitted. "I should have trusted you. I should have asked, instead of assuming the worst. I let my fear twist everything. The truth is, I was scared of losing you, scared that the distance I felt between us meant something I couldn't face." My throat tightened. I let insecurity guide me, and it almost ruined us. Her arms slowly dropped to her sides, the tension in her shoulders easing. "I understand fear," she said gently, "but love can't survive on fear alone. It needs trust, honesty, openness. If something feels wrong, we need to talk about it, not hide behind silence or suspicion." I nodded, the weight of her words settling deep into me. She wasn't just angry, she was right. The cracks in our marriage weren't about her secrecy or my suspicion. They were about the gaps we'd let form between us, the conversations we'd stopped having, the assumptions we'd allowed to fester. We stood there for a long moment, looking at each other, the hurt between us tempered by something else, understanding. At last, I reached for her hand, tentative, almost afraid she'd pull away. To my relief, she let me hold it, her fingers cool, but steady in mine. "I don't want to lose what we have," I whispered. "I want to be better. For you, for us. No more guessing games. No more letting my imagination run wild. From now on, I'll trust you, and I'll be honest about what I feel instead of burying it." Her eyes softened, and for the first time that night, a faint smile tugged at her lips. "And I'll be more open too," she said. "No more secrets, even if they're meant to be surprises. We'll rebuild this together." Relief washed over me, though the guilt still lingered like a shadow. Yet within that guilt was something important, a lesson. Trust isn't fragile because of what others might do. It's fragile because of what we allow ourselves to believe when fear whispers louder than love. As we walked back to our cars, side by side again, I felt the knot in my chest begin to loosen. The night had nearly torn us apart, but it had also reminded me of what was worth holding on to. That night, I thought I'd lose her forever. Instead, I almost lost myself to suspicion. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please subscribe. Our channel, Awesome Visual Story.